Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans, and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people, and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks, so that you can win each day, every day.
When I backyard wrestled, we weren't doing it to film it. We were doing it to do it. Big difference between what the reasons people do stuff nowadays. And it wasn't while I was there that I got all the benefits. It was leaving Peru, coming home for a day, and flying out to PWG Battle of Los Angeles and wrestling Chris Hero. That's where I got my love for wrestling back. If you don't have a plan, then you become part of someone else's plan. We get there, we sweep, we mop, we do all the little things, and then we get in there and we pray to the wrestling god. I don't want to call it the greatest decision I've made, because who really makes the decisions? It's just, I really paid attention to the signs. Serendipity always follows these stories, and I know if you listen to Terrence McKenna, they always talk about how there's certain, something out of the ordinary will happen, and then the synchronicities line up, and somebody ends up offering you such and such. Everything that I've done in my entire life just led me down the path that it leads you to. Hey, this is Matt Sydal. You're listening to Airey Bros Radio.
What up, y'all? This is Airey Bros Radio, and this is episode 34 with Matt Sydal. You ready, Prince?
Ready as I'll ever be, Richie Rich. I'm ready to give Airey Bros Radio Matt Sydal, also known as Evan Bourne in the WWE.
Yo, don't be alarmed. Stick around. Stay tuned. Tune in. Just because Matt's a professional wrestler doesn't mean you need to touch that dial. He's got a lot of things going on. He's been a lot of places. He's done a lot of things. He's seen a lot of shit. And you're going to want to hear all about it, because we get into all of that, from his journey down into the jungle of Peru to his time in a Japanese jail cell and everything in between. Matt's got a lot of cool shit going on, and he talks about all that stuff, gets into it with us. This is a cool conversation. I'm not a wrestling fan, professional wrestling fan, but I can get down with Matt Sydal.
That is awesome to hear, Richie Rich. Before we ever had a podcast, before we ever thought about this, I was listening to podcasts with Matt Sydal, talking about some of the things he talks about on this podcast. So to be able to link up with Matt, get him on the phone for 50 minutes, and pick his brain about life and everything in between was very special to me. And just to know that you enjoyed this one, coming from a professional wrestler, and you were into this podcast, I already know it's a win.
Yo, when someone brings up Ram Dass or Jack Cornfield, I'm in.
Terrence McKenna,
I'm in. 100. So, get your pen, get your paper. Matt drops some knowledge here. He talks about some of the work he's done to be a better person, be more positive, be more grateful, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you all do as well. This is episode 34 of Airey Bros Radio. You got anything else, Prince?
Let's just do that shooting star press right on into this thing, Richie Rich.
I don't even know what that means. Sit back, relax, enjoy today's episode of Airey Bros Radio. Much love. Namaste. From the boys of 1512. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Welcome to Airey Bros Radio. This is Matt Sydal, professional wrestler, psychonaut. Matt, welcome to the show.
Greetings.
How you doing today?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
good,
Yeah, so Jimmy's a huge wrestling fan, and he brought you to my attention, and then some of your other escapades, I guess we could say, has kind of piqued my interest in who you are and what you got going on. So if you could just real quick give us a little bit of background about kind of where you're coming from and how you got into wrestling, and then how that led you into, finding out about ayahuasca and some of those experiences.
Sure, yeah. So I am a professional wrestler named Matt Sydal. I currently live in Clearwater, Florida. I started out as just a regular kid from Missouri. I grew up in St. Louis. Both my parents were school teachers. And I kind of became obsessed with wrestling in my youth. And not just obsessed with watching it. My obsession was more with, repeating what I saw on my trampoline in my backyard. And then that steadily progressed into a thing called backyard wrestling, which was all the rage in the late 90s amongst the kids. Not really the rage, but it was certainly something we were asked to not try at home. Every time you'd watch WWE programming, it said, "Do not try this at home." And then that's what me and my friends did. And from there, I followed it with, I guess, a lot of passion and vigor, and ended up wrestling in Japan, wrestling for WWE, wrestling and all sorts of famous and wonderful people. And now I'm a wrestling coach as part-time, and then the rest of the time I'm still active wrestling all over the world. This year I just went to England, Israel, Germany. I mean, it's a pretty good life. It's a unique industry, but I've got quite the passion for it. It's my particular, what would you call it, a performing art, and for people who get it, there's no explanation needed, and if you don't get it, I'm not going to bother trying to explain it to you, because it doesn't bother me, because, not everything's for everyone, but the people that wrestling connects to, we all have a certain particular bond that, whether you're a wrestler or a fan, whatever it is, it's sort of a common ground to start at, where you speak a similar language about your passion. And, that's what I really love about wrestling. There's a great community around it. That's what's kept me in it, and that's sort of what I do.
And so coming up, were you an athlete? Did you play sports in high school or anything, or did you just kind of gravitate towards that and ran with it?
I was athletic, but I was more like, I didn't really dig team sports. I didn't like all the ref blaming and the, so-and-so should have hit a home run, or if you guys hadn't dropped the ball, we'd have won. I kind of like sports that are one-on-one. I like martial arts. I like jumping around on my trampoline. Yeah, and I really took to pro wrestling because I love the idea of the performance art. And when I was a kid, we would even choreograph fight scenes, pretending to be stunt men. And I think that sort of morphed into whatever it is I do now.
So are there any of those old school videos floating around on YouTube?
It's so funny because it's not. I know there's not. I mean, when I backyard wrestled, we weren't doing it to film it. We were doing it to do it. Big difference between the reasons people do stuff nowadays. We just had it in us. That's what you did to entertain yourselves and to have fun. We were just doing that. And so, yeah, actually with this kid, I was friends with this kid who came. Anyway, I lent out all the tapes, and they never, ever made it back.
Oh, no. So
I don't. I mean, what am I going to do? Go back and watch? I mean, me and my brothers, we still joke about it. We still remember all the shows, and we have, a half dozen running jokes from late 90s backyard wrestling that run through today. So we certainly still get our enjoyment out of it, regardless of the tape.
And you have a brother that's a wrestler as well, too, right?
Yeah, so my older brother Mike is a wrestler, and my younger brother Dan was active in the backyard days, but he has since just retired to teaching. But we started a little wrestling family, and it kind of grew from there. My brother and I have wrestled together in Korea, in Japan, Mexico. I mean, it's been pretty amazing. He was just here training with me for a month in Florida at my wrestling school. Man, he is just for just technically perfect, and just he has all the things that we really understand each other when it comes to wrestling. Sometimes we don't understand each other in life, but man, when it comes to what we like in wrestling, we both trained under SEMA and Dragon Gate, and just we see things the same way, and we're trying to accomplish the same goals and that kind of thing.
Are you looking to start tag teaming with him more, or you prefer doing singles?
Tag wrestling is my favorite style. Well, 6-man tag wrestling is my favorite style. But Mike is busy. He's got his own life, and so we take the opportunities we get. So we kind of work together in Denver, and we've wrestled together in Dragon Gate. But it's not really an every weekend kind of thing where I'm shooting solo most of my weekend gigs.
And working in Denver, is that Lucha and Laughs you guys do?
Yeah, it's called Lucha Libre and Laughs.
Yeah.
Is there another one of those coming up? I see them in the local paper every once in a while since we've been down here.
Oh, cool. I'm not exactly sure when the next one is. I thought I was going to come back out there in September, but it looks like it might not be until closer to the end of the year or 2020. But those shows are always worth checking out. They're a ton of fun to be at.
All right, we'll put that on the calendar for sure.
You had mentioned all the different places you were just recently. Do you prefer being on the road? Is that kind of your passion, being out there traveling, or do you prefer being in Clearwood or running the school?
No, yeah. So for me, especially right now, I'm 36. If I never got on an airplane again, if I never stayed in a hotel, I'd be a very happy man. I like the simple life. I like to lay low and sit out and look at the birds and, kind of stare at the water, read a book. The thing about wrestling is it's very exciting. There's a lot of sounds and lights and explosions and guys getting dropped on their head and craziness and people yelling and screaming. So when I get home, I just like it to be nice and quiet and peaceful and calm, and that's kind of the only way I've managed to find balance is by being pretty laid back when it comes to the home life. Like a lot of people dream of going on vacations, and I used to just dream of staying home, and then I realized, I could do it if I just stopped signing contracts for different companies and became my own boss and did my own schedule. So that's what I'm doing now.
And so with the busy wrestling schedule and that sort of a lifestyle, how did you come to discover or hear about ayahuasca, and what kind of brought you down or led you to that path?
That's so obviously it's like everything that I've done in my entire life just led me down the path that it leads you to. Like, whatever I had for breakfast helped. But I'll tell you, basically, the day serendipity always follows these stories. And I know if you listen to Terrence McKenna, they always talk about how there's certain, something out of the ordinary will happen, and then the synchronicities line up, and somebody ends up offering you such and such, opening your mind or enlightening you to a new perspective. That's sort of what happened to me. I met a girl in Edmonton, Canada, one night, and she rocked my world and told me about how when she was 16 to 18, she lived in Peru, and she was a bartender, and then she went into the forest and drank this stuff called ayahuasca, and it changed her life. And she was just glowing. She just had an extraordinary quality to her, and I was like, well, whatever. If it works for you, I'm very interested. And that was right around the same time that Joe Rogan had started talking about that, and I had been listening to his podcast since episode 1. And basically, Aubrey Marcus went on there and said he went to a place and did ayahuasca, and it really helped him. I heard that, and I said, boy, as soon as I'm done with WWE, I'll take a week or two and go down to Peru and see what happens, see if that's going to be something that could help me, because I tried the other routes, sobriety, I try, the generic prescriptions that you were offered. I kind of exhausted those, and so then I took the plunge. I felt the call. I went down to Peru, and that was, it was an eye-opening experience. And really, there was just cultural learning, unlearning. There was just getting back in touch with, my own true nature and self, and taking the break from the go, which was like the first chance that I remember having, like, wow, I can really slow things down. And the kind of healing parts went from there.
And so had you had any experiences with any sort of psychedelics before you went down to Peru?
Not really. I didn't know. It was very new to me. just